If you've ever played Apex, you've probably played a tutorial. This is where the game teaches you basic concepts, but one of the things it misses out on is movement. So in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you just that. The guide isn't PC specific, but if you are a PC player, make sure that you've bound your scroll wheel to the forward input for either scroll up or scroll down, and then the opposite scroll input for jumping. It's not really a necessity for most of the tricks here, but it will make it much easier. And before we start going into the cool, flashy techniques, I want to cover a pivotal part of movement that most guides don't really cover, and that is air strafing. Air strafing is something that most Source game players know about, but if you're new to Apex or Source games in general, this might just sound like complete Greek to you. Air strafing, along with lurching, are mid-air movement inputs, which allows me to do this. So basically, mid-air movement. Properly controlling your movement while mid-air is composed of two parts, one being your movement input and the other being your aim. Let me switch to Octane to give you a better example. Keep in mind that what I'm showing you isn't necessarily just for Octane or when you take the jump pad, but the jump pad gives me a little bit more space to show you what's happening. If I just take a jump pad and hold a movement key while mid-air, I'll be moving a little bit to the side. If I just turn my aim, nothing really happens. I just keep going the same direction. But if I combine the two by slowly rotating my view in the direction of which I am turning with my movement key, I can make a much wider turn. The same principle allows when jumping normally off the ground and really whenever in the game. Lurching can also be used to adjust your movement and gain any horizontal velocity on the spot. For example, if you are running in one direction and jump, by using only your movement keys, you can actually change the direction of the jump. You can even do a backwards input to stop yourself mid-air. This is something that's known as a redirect. Also, a quick tip, you can use this to slide in any direction that you want to confuse your enemies. All you have to do is run, jump, use your movement inputs to gradually control yourself in the direction which you want to slide, and then crouch when you're going to hit the ground. If done properly, you can actually enter a backward slide from a forward running position. It's a good idea to spend extra time getting a good grasp of air strafing and lurching, as these are the basis for most movement techniques, and having a good feeling for how to abuse them will make every subsequent movement technique that much easier to pull off. But now, let's start off with the movement technique that you'll be using most of the time during the game, and that is the run slide or slide jump or whatever it goes by. When you are running or rotating, you want to initiate a slide, and after a little while, make a jump to cancel that slide. Sliding and canceling makes you harder to hit, but most importantly, will give you a little bit of a velocity boost, making it faster than just running in a straight line. Keep in mind though that doing this up or down hills will affect the slide, but just continue doing it and you'll get the hang of it. As for when you should initiate a slide, keep an eye on the left hand on your screen as you are running. Once the hand falls down a second time and a little while after, you are safe to initiate a slide and get the most efficient timing when it comes to the run slide, meaning that you'll be able to pull more of these off and rotate faster than anyone else in the lobby. Keep in mind that you're still able to slide uphill, but depending on the slopes, you probably won't see much of a benefit of going for the slide jump. Sliding up hills also poses a risk of getting dead slides, which means you randomly get stuck in the ground, so it's not really worth it. Sliding down slopes is worth it, as you might recall it being mentioned in the tutorial. You will get even more speed if you start a slide on a downhill slope, even if it's a shorter one, unlike the long hill that you slide down in the firing range. If you have to escape an enemy and heal up at the same time, you want to try to pop your healing items while sliding down any hill, as this minimizes your movement's penalty. And this is when we're going to start introducing edge boosting. This is a phenomenon in the game where sliding off a ledge will give you a small speed boost. This can be combined with a jump at the very end of the ledge to get even more speed, and is something you want to look out for, especially when you're just rotating and slide jumping around between point A and point B. Moving on, we're going to take a look at wall jumps. I've been wall jumping since the technique was discovered in like early 2019, and I believe I've developed flawless techniques since then. The trick is to constantly do it when you are rotating, because this adds a little bit of extra speed and it makes rotations a lot less boring to deal with. To do a simple wall jump, run towards a wall and initiate a slide. Follow this by jumping and timing your jump so that you hit the wall at the peak of your jump. Also, after you've jumped, let's go with all of your movement keys. Once you hit the wall, you'll also hear a thump. Jump again to get launched in the direction of which you were going. You can also level up your wall jumps by, instead of completely letting go of your movement after jumping, by adding a backwards and or sideways input in the direction of which you were going at the same time as you do the jump input when hitting the wall. This gives you even more momentum and control of the direction of which you are going. You can also get more precise control of where you are going by turning your view around after the bounce. If you try wall bouncing off objects that are a little bit shorter that normally would make you climb, make sure to let go of your forward input and do a side input when you would bounce away from it. This stops the game from starting a climb animation in the first place. And that's because if you jump at the ledge while holding your forward input, you will initiate a climb. Also, it's good to know that you can jump at ledges with a forward input and then stop moving in any direction after latching on, as this will make your legend hang over the edge until you decide to climb up, or I guess drop off. Moving on, we have bunny hopping. This is another OG technique that gaming veterans might recognize, which allows you to keep most, if not all of your momentum by bouncing before you hit the ground and let it slow you down. To pull this off, all you have to do is build any momentum, in this case we'll do a slide jump, and then spam the jump input without any additional inputs necessary as I'm about to hit the ground. It does help if your scroll wheel is bound to jump. You can get farther by using a version of the air strafing I mentioned earlier, namely turning your view to the left or the right combined with side input simultaneously. Retaining momentum is especially huge if you've gotten a high velocity move off, such as taking a jump pad, a gravity cannon, or you name it. You can also hold crouch when initiating the bunny hop to get the slide off. This gives you a little bit of less side movement, but will make you smaller and harder to hit. This can also make you harder to hit after popping a battery. Although this isn't as strong as it used to be, it still allows you to keep moving and maybe round that corner while being difficult to hit. If you're playing Octane, you can easily combine a crouch bunny hop, your stem, and popping a battery and not actually seeing any movement penalty. Let's continue with the zipline super jump. There is a lot of different variations of the zipline jumps, but seeing as this is a beginner's guide, we'll cover the most important and basic one. The zipline super jump allows you to pull off a super high jump by abusing a zipline, and it looks something like this. It might seem a bit difficult, but is actually pretty simple once you get a hang of it. To do a super jump, stand under a zipline while looking up at it, interact with it, and then immediately do a jump input afterwards. This also helps if you jump with your scroll wheel. The timing does take a little while to get down, but this small movement technique will give you infinite value to climb certain buildings all over Apex. And of course, to top it off, let's cover the reason why I asked mouse and keyboard users to bind their forward input to the scroll wheel. We're talking about the forbidden technique of tap strafing. This technique uses a mix of air acceleration and takes lurching to the max by spamming lurch inputs with your scroll wheel, and despite what people tell you, is very simple to pull off with enough practice. The core part of the tap strafe is basically the same movement that I taught you about air acceleration at the start of the video. After getting some speed, turn your view around while adding side movement inputs in the direction of which you are going. But only this time, you're also going to be using your scroll wheel for the entire duration of the turn. The wider the turn, the longer your scroll needs to be. This takes a little bit of practice to get down, but is extremely simple, and tap strafing is a fundamental technique when it comes to movement. It can be combined into infinitely more movement techniques, but that's for advanced users, and if you would like to, you can learn more about that later by checking out the rest of the videos on my channel, specifically this one. And wow, we're almost 8 minutes in. So as a thank you for watching this far, I'd like to give you some extra quick movement tips that will elevate your movement that much more. Also, since you did end up watching this far, make sure that you've hit the subscribe button. You can climb a little bit farther by adding a left or right movement input at the very peak of your climb, right when you're about to start jumping off. You can cancel the false stun by touching a wall right before landing. If you stand right by Octane's jump pad and punch towards it in the way that the punch windup puts you on the jump pad, this will make you bounce straight up on the jump pad without actually going anywhere. Exiting Horizon's tactical will give you enough of a speed boost to launch you about 20 meters horizontally. If you jump off at the peak, the jump arch will give you about a 27-meter distance. Also, if you're interested in more advanced movement, check out the video on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.